It's the final day of RightsCon 2025 here in Taipei, and we're kind of wrapping up our interviews with some of the greatest thought leaders working to defend human rights in the digital age. And one of those is with us now. Chihhao Yu is a software engineer from Taiwan. He's also an information designer and co-director of the Taiwan Information Environment Research Center, IORG, based here in Taipei. And you work in that center to safeguard election integrity and build democratic resilience in Taiwan. I'm wondering, power to you, because
Thank you.
democracy is very new in Taiwan. You had your first democratic elections in 1996, and now Taiwan is in the news every single day. We hear, some of the threats to your industry. Trump is threatening to raise the tariffs on the computer chips that are produced here. We were talking earlier about the human cost of producing 90% of the world's advanced computer chips. Can you give us a sense of what that is?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Well, I grew up here in Taiwan. I actually had my high school education in Hsinchu, which is the headquarter of TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Production Company.
But you never worked there?
I never worked there. I did not want to be a software engineer when I graduated, but a lot of my classmates did. A lot of them went into TSMC at the time, and it was very difficult for me to get them out of their work life and have a dinner together, have a drink. One time we actually managed to do so in Hsinchu, right in the science park where TSMC's headquarters is. So we finally sat down, started to have our dinner, and I said, it's so nice that we finally get to do this. We never get to have a dinner after we graduated. So you have the night off. But they said no. So we're here for dinner. And then after dinner, we're going back home, shower, rest a little bit, and then go back to the office and work for another shift until midnight.
And this is because labor is hard to come by in Taiwan.
Well, it is. Our educational system here encourages young men to become engineers and in the STEM disciplines. A lot of us are and also the tech industry pays a lot better than other industries here in Taiwan. But still, there's a shortage of people.
Did you say young men?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did say young men. So
is that specifically, it's a gendered thing like that?
more or less, there's a tendency. This is, although given the progressive image of Taiwan, there's a lot of
that's interesting.
a lot of tradition.
Traditional role
Yes,
models.
That
traditional.
engineering and technology is men's business, and
Right, and then management.
Education and nursing is women's business, probably.
That's still the tendency
That is
that this
interesting.
society exhibits. Well, despite the fact, there's a lot of organizations here that are trying to change that, trying to balance out gender roles, things like that.
So once a young man has raised enough money, can he get out of the industry? I mean, is it a full-time career for him
Yes, I believe so.
for his
A lot of
entire
my
life?
no. Well, a lot of my senior classmates, they did manage to sort of semi-retire before a lot of us do.
Okay.
So that's sort of their life
That's the
choices
benefit.
as well.
Yeah.
But then
Get a lot of money and then retire.
during those times
But are these people working
yeah.
on the factory line, or are they actually people who are producing the chips themselves?
A lot of different roles.
Yeah.
If you're educated in the higher rankings or in the masters, you probably get into the design or the software engineering, the development, while the factory lines are another level
Different
of
level, okay.
yeah.
It's been called the miracle chip industry of Taiwan, Taiwan's great miracle. Do you see it like that?
I think as a Taiwanese person, it is very fortunate for us to have that industry. But then again, it's built on top of Taiwanese effort by actual people and their sacrifices.
Yeah.
So
Isn't it funny now that, we've been doing this podcast for a while now, and underneath every piece of technology is a human story, and people think about AI as like the cloud. Like they think about AI as this sort of like the algorithm, but they don't think about AI in terms of like the data centers and the earth and the cables and the human exploitation and the entry of data and all of these things that are happening to enable the so-called miracle. And a lot of those stories, which are not virtual, they're actually physical stories, are also stories of oppression as well, and stories of, we've seen a lot of labor organizing here at the conference where workers are saying on like the militarization of tech, for instance, that we don't want to have a part in that. We've seen it in Amazon. There was the unionization of the labor force. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with Taiwan and its tech workforce.
Yeah. Just getting back to our original starting point about building democratic resilience in Taiwan, how can the digital space work towards building that resilience?
Well, there's a lot of things to do. One thing that IORG, my organization, does is we use data and technology to detect different kinds of foreign malign influences here in Taiwan, targeting Taiwanese Mandarin, mainly Mandarin-speaking people, and also other Mandarin-speaking communities around the world. I think that's what tech can do. Just one thing out of many things, right? Those influences, they seek to sway our opinions, form alternative realities or worldviews, and sort of diminish our faith in democracy and our way of life. I think that is something that we're trying to do. To put it more concretely, we see influences both online and offline, right? In the information space online, but also in the physical space offline. But there's a lot that data can tell us, right? For example, using machine learning and AI to cluster and detect manipulative narratives that are happening, spreading in Taiwan, trying to convince people here that Taiwan will fail as a state, right? To make ourselves give up on ourselves. And offline speaking, our main neighbor, China, has been trying to get into our society, infiltrate our people and our organization. And they host a lot of these so-called cross-strait exchanges. And a lot of those information are also available online as well, using OSINT and other kind of techniques. So give us a better idea of how our adversary are trying to infiltrate us. So those are some
And
of
you're
the things.
exposing that. Like, tell us about how you expose it, what tools you use to actually see those
Yeah.
manipulated narratives, and how you then communicate to the population to warn them that
Yeah.
actually,
That's fake news.
yeah, that's fake news.
Yeah. Well, it can also be very scary to an
Yeah.
average audience, right? To see those things. Yeah. So we've been building our own technology, collecting public information since our founding in 2019, and now we have a pretty big database of useful information, but also, not so useful information. We try to
Yeah.
we try to seep out the good stuff from the meaningless stuff. And usually we start with the narratives because that's what people care about, because that's what forms people's opinions.
Storytelling.
Exactly. And those narratives can sometimes be very captivating because they tell another kind of story. Maybe, a more of a Chinese traditional virtue story, or more of a sort of human story. A lot of the times that's more attachable. That's more agreeable
Yeah.
to some of the narratives that we might be more familiar with, talking about values and democracy.
And food.
And yes, exactly. So
I feel like food might be the.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, we love food, and
we've noticed.
yes, exactly,
And enjoyed.
And enjoy.
and enjoy it and be very serious about it.
And
Yeah.
I think we're all going to go back heavier than where we started, because it's like, can I fit another dumpling in? But so it's sort of base narratives. It's like very familial narratives
Yes.
around identity and culture and
Yes,
stuff. Yeah.
yes, and there's a lot of variations based on that one base, focus idea, right? And then it just evolves through time and trying to sway or like lead people away from our democratic way of life.
Does this mean that you see, say, a post and you read that false narrative or that virtue narrative coming in from China, and that's the red light. You think, hang on, something's coming in under the radar here.
Yeah, because we're a civil society organization. We can't say Facebook, please take it down.
Yeah.
And we don't want that, but we want our readers to be aware that when they expose themselves to perhaps content from China, they need to be aware of the agenda behind it.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
our job is to expose and inform our people about those agenda using data, using evidence.
And you're a contributor to gov-zero, which is Taiwan's civic hacking community,
Yes.
and you're also an organizer of Facing the Ocean. But what is the role of hacking in pushing back against
well,
oppression?
that's my passion right here.
Yeah, I can see his
Yeah,
face
it's like,
face lights up for those who are
hacking.
who are listening and can't
Yeah.
see.
So whatever we do at IORG, we're inspired by the vast community of gov-zero and other civic hackers in the region, right? In Japan, in Korea. We were just having dinner last night. They visited us, and we're all gaining some weights here, in Taipei. What the civic hacking or the civic tech community have been doing for 10 plus years is trying to exactly using technology to improve democracy, right? When government services fail, we build alternatives. When governments are being opaque.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. We build transparency mechanisms, things like that. And during COVID, for example, when the government fails to provide information, we build our own portals. And sometimes then the government will come and say, let's work together to build accessible services. Those are the things I think, although, countering malign influence is important, at the same time, empowering our own people to build, better services, better lives for ourselves is also important. And I think the civic tech is trying to do that sort of positive side of the puzzle.
And Facing the Ocean, that organization, is that a separate body?
Yeah, so Facing the Ocean is sort of an alliance between civic hackers here, gov-zero, in Japan, Call for Japan, in Korea, Call for Korea. And
I love it.
Originally in Hong Kong as well, gov-zero Hong Kong. But now, since the national security law in Hong Kong,
it's made those activities
very,
criminal.
very difficult.
Yeah.
Exactly, and criminal. Exactly.
I see.
And we learned from each other. For example, during COVID, the map for mask distribution was sort of from Hong Kong to Taiwan and then to Japan and to Korea. So you see that kind of co-learning process happening around our region. And Facing the Ocean, the name is actually given to us from a Hong Kong friend. And Facing the Ocean, being on the first island chain, we sort of kind of, sometimes turn away from our big, neighbor and like build our own solidarity here.
How do you say face the ocean? Is it in Mandarin or is it in English?
It's, in Mandarin, we say 面海松. 面海as in facing the ocean, and song means hackathons. That's what we host, like communal events together.
Amazing.
And looking to the horizon,
And
looking to the
let it be
bright
bright.
horizon. Yeah.
looking at the Pacifics and coding and building solidarity together.
Fantastic.
Sort of a
Romantic
vision.
Yes. I mean,
We need them.
Yeah.
well, we're hosting our next event here probably in September in Kaohsiung, facing the ocean, perhaps.
And you were just saying that Kaohsiung was just targeted. You had an announcement from China saying we're just going to start shooting there.
Yes, China yesterday just unilaterally announced that, don't get into this piece of Taiwan Strait outside of Kaohsiung, and we're going to start to shoot stuff.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Yeah.
Apparently
The
China.
Chinese.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have a big and powerful and kind of scary neighbor.
Yeah.
It is. They are scary.
Good luck with your work in the
Yeah,
future.
really good
Thanks
luck.
for joining
Thank you
us.
so much
Thank
for
you so much.
coming.